Welcome to another Make It Meaningful. I'm Garden Girl Jen Gallacher. So this entire month we've been talking about daily life and capturing everyday moments. This week in particular, we're talking about creative ways that you can capture those moments. So my husband hates having his picture taken almost as much as I hate having my picture taken. So on this particular day for this layout of photos that I use, he was propping up the flowers in my garden and I started snapping photos. Now as soon as he hears the click of the camera, he realized that I've captured him on film, and then he and I have this agreement that he has to approve of the photos before I place them anywhere where the public can see them. But on this particular one, he was fine with them, and that's good. There are a few that he hasn't approved of that I've stashed away secretly to be used later. But sometimes to capture someone that doesn't like to be on film, it's okay not to do a head-on shot. You can capture them working, you can capture them just their hands, just look for details or creative ways where they're interacting with someone. Sometimes when you do this, you actually capture a more meaningful moment. And so it's okay to not always have face-to-face photos on your layout. On this particular layout, I use one where he's not looking at the camera, as well as two detail shots to help tell the story. So let's go ahead and get started. So to start this layout, we're going to start with a sheet of pattern paper on which I chose the B side. And the B side has a cream background and a tiny gold dot. And it was hard to choose because it has this beautiful black and gold foil side on the A side, but I needed a neutral background, so I'm using the B side. To the top of that, I'm going to add some craft cardstock, and it's actually a leftover piece from the project I did last week. It's always great when you have leftover items. And I'm actually going to center it this week in the middle of the layout. Now, I love adding borders to my projects, but for something different this week, I took two different sizes of triangles, and they're triangle punches, and I punched them out from black cardstock. And you can see the large one and the small one. And it's just a different way to do a border is to use punched or die cut shapes. And I used a textured cardstock, so that gave me a little bit of an interesting look. And we're going to go ahead and place these right behind the layout of the craft cardstock part of the layout. And then we'll overlap the smaller triangles. It's kind of a modern look. You're seeing a lot of white on whites in layouts and scrapbooks and even home decor. And gold and black is a really hot trend I have seen a lot as well. So we'll just add these like we did at the top. And we'll overlap them. So look through your punches or even your pre-cut die cuts and see if there's something that you could use that's a little bit different for the actual border for your page. Then across the bottom, I wanted to bring in some natural elements. And so this is an older pattern paper, but it is basically just a wood grain pattern paper. Now, My Mind's Eye does have wood paper, and I didn't realize when I bought it, but it is actually a real wood veneer. So this is another option. I decided I wanted to save it because I actually want to do some die cutting and punching with it. It's very, very thin, but do look for that in the store. So if you can't find it and it's out of stock, you can see this one is Christmas. Look through your stash and see if you have a wood that would work for this particular project. Then to bring in some more black, this is a pattern paper from Fancy Pants Design, but it's just a black diagonal stripe. Any black pattern paper will work. And we'll just place that across the bottom here. And then for the left side of the layout, I'm going to do something fun. So I pulled these cork circles from out of the packaging, and I left the plastic packaging on the back. So you can see they're all in one piece. And then I put them on my page, and I was trying to think about which ones I wanted to use, and I realized that I could actually use as many as I want on this layout. Now these are garden and summer themed, and if you're not doing that particular theme, just look for any cork item or simply use the ones that maybe are less obvious. But this is a garden one, and I'm going to follow their pattern fairly closely and just add them randomly throughout the page. And it does mean using up a great deal of the items on the page, and you have to decide if you're willing to do that. Now, before I go any further, I knew I wanted to incorporate some journaling, and I thought I'm going to mimic the look of Cork, and I printed my journaling out in a space where I could use a punch, and I'm going to use a paper punch to punch it out. So this is 1 3/4 circle punch. You can use whatever circle punch you want, but I kind of used the rulers in my word processing program to create the width that I wanted. And now we can use this. Now you can add brown stamping ink around it, which is what I'm going to do, just to give it a little bit more depth, because it's going to be tone on tone, because I'm placing it right on the top of that background craft pattern paper. That just makes it pop just a little bit more. And if you wanted to, you can even add foam dots. I'm just going to use it the way that it is. Make sure the journaling is straight up and down. And then you can continue with the pattern. Just even carry one off the page. And they are sticky enough that you can manipulate them a little bit and move them around. So I just created a fun grid using Cork. So if you don't want to use up an entire sticker sheet, I suggest you look through your stash and find items of similar shape. Or you could do hearts and stars and just do a mishmash of items down the page. But it just creates a great raised texture. One of the things that my mind's eye has started making is vellum foil. And it is gold in this particular one. And I'm going to create a little pennant at the bottom. But it's just absolutely gorgeous. And they have polka dots, they have these triangle ones. Now with a transparent thing like vellum, you're going to want to carefully plan where to put your adhesive. And I'm going to put adhesive right on the right side, because I already know that I'm going to overlap. And then just allow it to fold up. If you want to, you can strategically place small glue dots under the triangles. On top of that, more my mind's eye paper. This is a nice rich red. The color scheme that inspired this entire layout actually came from the back side of this pattern paper. And it's a really, really bold color, but I loved the red. So we're going to go with the red. We're going to slightly overlap them. And then down the center, another piece from the same collection. It's a green, and I cut it so that the stripes ran horizontally. I wanted to make sure I saw lots of stripes on this, and that brings in the green. And then you've seen me do this before, but I do sometimes like to add texture by wrapping twine around things like this. And I do repeat things in my style because it is my signature on my layouts. So I always try and add elements that fit my style. Once it's down, you can tie this into a bow, or you can do it before you adhere it. It's up to you. It just adds a little bit of texture. So baker's twine, ribbon, whatever you have on hand. And then for the photos, I'm going to take some frames. One is this shimmery gold, and I'm going to add adhesive to the back. And these photos are of my husband taking care of the yard and the way the yard looks. I'll place that entire piece. Now this is a very thin chipboard, but it works beautifully on the page. We'll center this one at the top. And then we'll add a black heart paper clip from Embellishments. Any paper clip in the colors you're working with will do. But it just adds some more black to the page. And then I have two more small Polaroid frames, and I've already pre-cut the photos to go inside. We'll just place them right on top of the photo. If any of your photo ends up showing on the side, you can easily trim them out. It's just up to you. Now these are from two different sets. Some are a little bit thicker, and the gold glitter one is a little bit thinner, but they work exactly the same. So you can use them however you like. I'm going to overlap this one. play with some depth a little bit here. Bringing in some of that gold and then yellow form. And there's yellow in the flowers, which brought in some of that yellow that I wanted to use. You could also, if you wanted to, carry over one of the circular cork if you have any left over, so there's no empty spots on your page. It's up to you. Now, in this particular collection that had both the red and the green, there were a die cut ephemera sheet. And because I'm talking about flowers, I'm going to use these flower die cut shapes. You could also fussy cut from the pattern paper these same shapes if you wanted to. So the back side of that red pattern paper, again, don't forget, has some beautiful floral patterns, and you can fussy cut them if you so desired. Now the title is going to go across the layout, and this again was a die cut. And so we'll maneuver it until we get it how we like. Now for something thin like this, you might want to use like a glue pen. And to get it started, you may have to press it down, or you can take a sheet of cardstock or pattern paper or printer paper, whatever extra paper you have. And if you're careful, you can add dot runner adhesive on the back. You can also run it through a Xyron machine, and then you can place it onto your layout. So again, just be gentle, because if you pull too hard when you're doing the dot runner, you can actually tear the die cut. If you don't have this ephemera pack, then cut something similar with your silhouette machine. Then on top of the die cut title, I want to add some stickers, and I loved the scale of these Jelly Bean Soup alpha beans, and the yellow is a great yellow. So I've already pulled off the letters I want to use. We're going to say very best. We're slightly overlapping. And you can play with the letters until you get the placement just right before you push them down all the way on your page. One thing I'll do is I'll use the pattern in the pattern paper to make sure I get the alignment just right. And I may move these again. Now I want to bring in some glitter and blings, so I'm going to bring in some sequins to match the gold, and I also have white. An easy way to adhere these is to use glue dots. So just using glue dots, you can add sequins to the page. I've also seen them stapled on, I've seen them machine stitched. Whatever resources you have on hand will work. Bringing in some of that bling factor to the bottom. And I usually work in either an odd number in a cluster or an odd number across the entire page. And then to bring some more black to the top, I'm going to use Photo Corners from Canson, C-A-N-S-O-N. ThermaWeb also has these as well, and they just add a little bit of oomph to the page. And then when you're all done and you've included all the elements, it comes together very beautifully, and the eye is actually drawn to the entire page. So this particular layout, again, focuses on my husband's gardening skills and my appreciation for that. Thank you for joining me for today's Make It Meaningful video. Be sure to subscribe to the Two Piece YouTube channel so you don't miss out on this Friday weekly series.